Today we are changing out the door boot on another Duet washer. It's an Epic, but it's basically still a Duet. The machine is leaking, and here's the reason why. This door seal is torn right here. She has no idea how it happened, and we can't imagine either, although there was once a time whenever kids had a customer with her kid, her child, would chew on the rubber. Imagine that. Anyway, we've got a lot to do. This is a pretty big job. We're going to have to take the whole machine apart. Pretty much the whole front comes off to gain access to this boot. Control board comes off. So it comes off with a couple of snaps here. You have to pry it loose here. Get a screwdriver underneath here and pry carefully to pop it loose there. Has a couple of snaps along the top, and then there's one more snap which is really hard to get to. It's this last one here. It clicks into a little index port just right there. And that's really hard to get to. Okay, so with the control panel removed, we're now able to continue removing the front of the machine. As for the boot lip itself, there's a retaining ring that holds this boot to this surface. The retaining ring is right there. That ring, you just pry it off with your screwdriver. And then what's left are 4 screws. I believe there's 4 screws. There are 1, there's 2, 3, and 4 screws. Those things come off, and at that point we should be able to remove the front of the machine. Okay, so we've got the front off, and as you can see, the boot is about ready to come off. But before we do that, these counterweights, these are cement counterweights. These basically soften the oscillations of the machine whenever it's spinning. These counterweights have to come off in order to facilitate putting the boot back on. Some guys have said they've been able to get the boot off without removing the counterweights. I've never had that kind of luck. So we take these things off, and it makes it a lot easier to get the boot back on. I see that Whirlpool has made some new changes in their outer tub design, which I think are really good. Let me show you what I mean. This right here is the lip that the boot will be attached to, and then that boot will be secured with a wire loop. This wire loop, can you see that thing floating around there? That'll act as a clamp that'll hold the boot in place to the tub. In earlier versions, this lip was actually just a straight flange. It came straight out with no V-section, no indentation inside of it, and it was extremely difficult to get the boot on. The problem was that if you didn't get the clamp tight enough, it would slide off, and if you got the clamp too tight, it would slide off. Either way, you had to get it just right, and it often required a lot of playing around with the tension so that it was just right, and then you'd walk away crossing your fingers hoping that it would hold. So this is a vast improvement over what they've done in the past, and I commend Whirlpool for making that change. So anyway, the machine is pretty much opened up now, and we're going to start getting the new boot in place. Right, okay, now I've got the first counterbalance. That's cement counterbalance. That's been removed, the lower one. It comes off with three bolts, 1/2-inch bolts. Takes them off, come off pretty easily. We're going to do the same thing with the counterbalance that's up on the top. 3 1/2-inch bolts, take it off. Whenever you remove this counterbalance, be ready. It's heavy, and If you're not prepared for it, it'll drop right in front of you. If you're lucky, it won't break. If you're lucky, it won't crack the floor. So it's a heavy item. Be ready for it. Okay, the replacement boot is in place, and the concrete counterbalances, counterweights, they're back in place. Being careful with them, they're very heavy. And so far this job is going a lot faster than I had ever anticipated it would, mostly because of the fact that Whirlpool has changed the design of the flange that the boot rests against. Getting this boot on was very quick and easy. It took only a few minutes to do, whereas if I had been doing this before, I probably would have been fiddling with it for about 40 minutes, just trying to get the tension on that band just right. So anyway, Yahoo, Whirlpool, you did something right. Okay, so we're taking another break to see what's going on again, and basically the new boot's in place. Everything was just a reverse of how we took it apart. Just do it all in reverse. The new clamp is in place. This boot's holding really nicely. We're almost finished with this. Just put the lower panels on, put the door back on. And before we actually run this machine, we're going to put a little bit of this dish soap. We're going to put a little bit of dish soap on this outer lip here, and a little bit of dish soap on the door glass as well. And that's to make sure that these parts will slide together nice and easily. This is brand new, fresh, dry rubber, and it'll drag. I don't want this to tear, or I don't want this to possibly pull the boot loose of its mounting. So put a little bit of soap on those fittings, at least for the first couple wash or so, just to make them nice and slippery, and it'll facilitate closing and opening with minimizing the possibility of tearing or something else going on. Once again, another machine is back together again. It's all happy, no more leaks, and we're ready to close this one up and on to the next job.